Good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? I hope everybody's having a good weekend so far. I know mine hasn't been too bad. Been sort of a busy week. Well, first tonight, I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about some of the things that I'm going to be doing here in the upcoming future. I know you guys have seen the commercials that I've been putting out, and not trying to push those on anybody. I get paid to do those, so I'm going to have more of those. But the goal that I have for that is to have those commercials to where I insert one commercial that is a paid sponsor into each video, so that way I don't have to monetize them with commercials. So there'll be no other commercials but that one, and that's the goal that I'm working towards. And it's going pretty good towards that way. Now, some other things I want to talk a little bit about the upcoming series that is hopefully will be airing on one of the major networks before too long. That's still in the works. It's moving forward. It's liable to be 2 or 3 months before production would actually begin on that. And once again, I spoke to them yesterday and did some lines, online with them and things like that, did some recordings. And the need is still there for contestants on this show. So they want anyone. I'll put my email address in here again, but anyone that's interested in being a contestant, enter. Anyone that's interested in being a contestant on that show, it's going to have a prize that ranges between $10,000 to $15,000, and you're not really going to be competing against other people. There will be other people there, but what it would be is you're competing against the clock. You're going to have 8 days to get to a certain location, and once you make it to that location, you win. So if everyone makes it, then everyone wins. So anybody that's interested in that, it's going to be a pretty fun thing, especially being filmed in the Ukraine. So it's going to be, pretty exciting. Hey, Shirley, how you doing? Illinois, I hear you. I'm up here in Michigan right now. North Georgia, I hear you. Track Rock. The North Georgia Appalachians. I've spent a lot of time up through there because I lived, in South Carolina. Hey, Keisha, how you doing today? And I lived in South Carolina for, all my life, most of my life. I was born in Georgia, actually, but lived in South Carolina, right up in Oconee County, right in the corner of the state on the Georgia border. And it was, beautiful area. So I've been all up through them mountains, used to pan for gold a lot through there. I'm sure if you're from that area, you've done a lot of the same too, man. And it's a pretty nice place to be. Hey, Hidden City Prepper. Willie, how you doing? Yeah, I hope everybody's having a great, weekend. Hope you're having a great weekend. The stimulus got approved. Hopefully everybody will get theirs, those that qualify. I should be getting mine. I didn't get the last one, but I'll be getting this one, and that'll be pretty nice. And looking forward to that. Get me some more preps. Now, I had a video I've been working on for the past 3 or 4 days. And working on off and on the last 3 or 4 days. And I was wanting to have it out yesterday or today, but it's actually going to be pushed into probably tomorrow or Monday. And what this video is about is called assessment. And it's going to give us some tools that we need to look at the preps that we have and assess, do we have enough or do we not? And one of the things that I'm including with that video is I've created a document. And I've just titled the document, The Prepper's Checklist. I'm sure that name's already in use somewhere, but, it's not like I'm selling this. I'm going to put it on my website, SeriousSurvivor.com, and I'll put a link to it. Now, what this is an Excel document, and it has multiple sheets or multiple pages for all your different types of preps, your canned goods, your long-term food, your medical, your different bug out supplies, all things water. And I've incorporated a lot of the Excel formulas into it, and to try and make it really easy to use and try and make it informative. And this document is about 10 pages long, but on the first page in the Excel document is called the summary page. And on that page is going to be something you'll be able to open this document up. You're welcome, Hidden City. And it's going to be, when you open this document up, it's going to have a summary page on it. And this summary page is going to show you your entire inventory by numbers. It's going to show you how much you have in each category. It shows you how many, like in the food section, how many calories you have total for all of your food, how many servings that breaks down into for the average person. And that's also, I've included multiple calculators on there to where if you want to know how long, how much water do I need for 10 people for 39 days, this will calculate the exact amount to give you at least a gallon, right at a gallon a day. And the same with food. Based on 2,000 calories a day for a person, there's a calculator in that document that you'll be able to type in, all right, I've got 12 people in my group. How much food will I need for 6 months? And you put in 6 months and it'll automatically calculate the number of servings you'll need. And you can break that down by calories or, by however you want to. But it's really, I think it's a good document. I put a lot of time into that. I was wanting to have it out today, but it's going to be tomorrow or maybe as late as Monday evening when I get the editing done on it. But having that out will, I know for me, using a document like that, it helps me keep my inventory straight. Because when I look in my pantry back there, and I look at all the canned goods I got, I can see I got a lot, but I don't know how many I got by number. And I tried, just documenting that. But then there's so many things to be added. But the way that I've got this document set up is as you add a new item, it updates the entire inventory list as far as the number of overall calories you have, the number of overall servings you have. So it's a really good document. Check out that video. It'll be coming out in a couple of days. Yeah, Willie, you got the opportunity to get your ham radio license. Should I pursue it? I definitely would. That's something I would like to pursue. And it's not so much to just obtain the license, but to learn all the tricks in, using the ham radio, because it's not as simple as, a walkie-talkie or something like that. Hey, save yourself. How you doing? And so I would definitely pursue that because I don't think that's a very long course. I think it's like 1 day, 2 day course. But by taking the course, not only do you get your license and you can legally practice with that ham radio, but you're going to learn a lot of tricks that, I wouldn't learn trying to learn it on my own. So I would definitely jump all over that if you have that opportunity. No doubt. All right, well, tonight's video, whatever, I want to talk about a subject that is, I don't want to say it's touchy, but, some people get all bent out of shape about this subject. They get all bent out of shape, and that's scavenging, scavenging. We see shows on TV like The Walking Dead and shows like that. And when we look at, I'll use The Walking Dead as a beginning example here. When you watch The Walking Dead, that's all they do. They're not, they're scavenging. They're going from place to place, building to building, home to home, and they're scavenging for the supplies they need. And I put out a video probably a couple years back on what I called an urban survival or a scavenging kit, a set of tools that you should take with you if you're going scavenging, looking for supplies. And I actually had a lot of comments on that video, calling me a thief and things like that. And, I understand, some people will have the mindset that, well, it's not yours, so you can't take it. But, I'm not talking about scavenging tonight. I'm not going to go to Walmart and start scavenging in their warehouse tonight. Yes, I would go to jail. But, there's a difference between scavenging and looting. Looting is done for profit. When people loot or when people steal, they do that for profit for the most part. It's done to get something that they just want or something they can sell or something of opportunity. Scavenging is done out of necessity. I'm not going to scavenge some abandoned warehouse over here, not while I have a job and I'm working and I'm supporting my family. I'm not going to scavenge anything. I'm not going to steal anything, do anything. But if there is some type of, and I'm talking major event, that shuts down our government, that shuts down our way of life, that shuts down our system that we're used to, then scavenging for some people is going to become a way of life if you want to survive. There's a lot of things that we can't make on our own. And this is where the type of event is going to be huge in, it's going to be huge in determining what type of items should I scavenge. Now, if, when the power's out for the weekend, and a hurricane comes through and my power's out for a week or two, no, that is not time to scavenge. So, I'm just clearing that up. in the beginning, I'm not talking about normal circumstances. I'm talking about the road type of circumstances, like the movie The Road, The Walking Dead. And I'm not saying zombies are coming, but I'm saying that in a situation in which most of humanity is just simply not around anymore, the population has been thinned out. There's no production. There's no manufacturing. There's no producing crops, no raising livestock, at least not on a huge level that's going to feed everybody. You know, we will be reduced to one of two things: hunting and fishing or scavenging. And I know a lot of people like myself, I'll say, well, I'm going to hunt and fish, but you know, I'm only going to be able to do that so much because other people are going to be doing it too, which is going to be dangerous for me. And, you know, in that, but this is where we have to look at what is our end goal? What is the end goal with this? Am I just trying to feed myself, put food in my belly until the day, you know, I kick the bucket from old age? Or am I trying to help my kids, their kids? Am I trying to help them rebuild or at least establish some type of community? So there's two different types of scavenging, and I'm not even counting looting. I'm going to throw that out the window right now because I'm not a looter, and I think most people aren't for the most part. You know, we're not just going to randomly steal stuff. But when it comes time that we have to make a decision between our family surviving or me going over to this closed down, you know, gas station and getting some food, you know, that's a pretty easy decision. At least it should be, in my opinion. We're going to do what we have to do to take care of our families. But when it comes to scavenging, there's two types, basically. I break it down into like two different categories. There's survival scavenging, and then there's rebuilding scavenging. And the difference is the type of things I'm scavenging for. Now, in both of these categories, you're definitely scavenging for food. You're scavenging for means to purify water and things like that. You're scavenging for the essentials to keep me alive, you know, in this situation. And that's fine. I think a little more long term, a lot of times, if, you know, there was an EMP, if there was a grid down, if there's a nuclear war, something that, you know, a large portion of the world's population is gone in, you know, in a short amount of time, then I'm not just going to try to survive. I'm going to try to ensure that I can build a little something, or at least participate in building a little something to where my children can build upon that and their children can benefit from that. And it's not just about surviving day to day. I don't want to just survive day to day. I want to be able to build up from there and to, you know, reestablish some type of community in the area I'm in. And so scavenging is going to be a necessary part. Those that aren't willing to do it are going to be at a loss, or, you know, going to be at a disadvantage against those that are willing to do it. So scavenging is something that if we're in this type of scenario, it's going to be a way of life. It's going to be something that we do all the time. It's going to be something that just is the way we get our supplies. And when we start talking about some of the items that we can scavenge for here and some of the places that we can go and look, a lot of this is really going to make sense as far as, you know, you're not just scavenging for stuff. You're scavenging for things that can make a difference a few months from now, a couple of years from now for those kids, things that can, you know, really change the world for them or for the better. All right. Now I put together some notes, but my printer printed like every other line. And so let's talk about now. What can we do now? I mean, I'm not going to go out and scavenge now, but I can determine what would be good locations to scavenge. This is where a map comes in very handy. Now, when we prepare for the future, you know, and that's what we're doing is preparing for the future. We also know that, you know, sometimes things get worse before they get better. And we may have to scavenge. We may have to fight. We may have to do a lot of things before we see that turn and things start getting a little better after some catastrophic event. So if we prepare now, we can make things so much simpler on us in the future. And one of the best preps you can have when you start thinking in, you know, terms of scavenging is a map with different areas, different locations marked on it. If you have a map of your county, for example, a map of your county, then you're going to want to, you know, mark off certain types of things on there. First of all, I'm going to mark off the areas that could become dangerous. And these would be areas that are like our nuclear power plants, gas refineries, any type of chemical plants, and possibly even water treatment plants. And what I do is I mark all these off on my map so I know where they're at. If there is a grid down, if there is a bad situation and that nuclear power plant does go in, does fail and doesn't have to melt down, it can just leak radioactive gas. There's a lot of things that can happen. Then I'm going to mark those on my map to begin with. I always mark the hazards first, and then I find the good things later. I make sure that I know the areas I don't want to go to. And then I focus on the areas that might have something that would, really benefit us in the future. And that's the second part to the map, is I want to mark off areas on the map that are things like warehouses, and some of this we're also going to touch on a little bit later too. But, warehouses, storage facilities, grocery stores, things like that, pharmacies. And your pharmacies, here's the thing about pharmacies. I think that pharmacies are going to be probably the first target in SHTF, because they got the drugs. So that's going to be the first place that hundreds of people go, and it will be cleaned out. You might get lucky and find a pharmacy, if you're not one of the first ones there, that still has some types of medication in it that could assist you. But most likely, these are going to be one of the first places to be cleared out. And also targets of opportunity, gas stations, things like that. Those are not going to keep their supplies long. What I mean is, when SHTF does occur, these are going to be some of the first places that are completely picked dry, because it's going to happen immediately, because these are convenient locations for people to get in, get out as fast as they can. It's not like going through a manufacturing facility or going into a warehouse or something that takes a little time to navigate your way through there. So marking off, I would leave off places that are going to get picked clean at first. Grocery stores are always a good thing, but, and the same thing being said, everybody in the world knows the grocery stores have food. So when they think they need food, that's the first place they're going to go. So I expect these to also be picked clean, very quickly in an apocalyptic scenario. Eat more possums. Possum stew. All right. Now, when we start thinking about putting together some things that can help us for this, that can help us, a map with areas that store food, like, for example, school cafeterias. Think of how many people they feed every day. They don't have that food delivered. They cook it there or at least they did when I was in school. They have these really big cans, like big, huge cans of food that they prepare food for the students. And if something does happen, these are probably not going to be one of the first places that get picked dry. These are probably going to, still have some types of supplies that, would possibly still be there. So this first step to this is I got to prepare beforehand. I got to know the area I'm in. I got to know, which areas would be better for me to scavenge. If I have a warehouse, a huge warehouse in the center of the town I live in, but I have a warehouse maybe half that size outside of town in the woods, or basically in a rural area, I'm going to hit the one outside of town first, because in town you have a lot more people, and that's going to be a lot more, I guess you could say, competition. And that's the problem when scavenging is, if there are people there, then that's the potential for conflict at that point. That's the potential for conflict. Now, before I go scavenging, there's a couple of things I need to do. So let's say, I've got my map. I've got my map with all the spots marked in my particular county or my particular area. Hey, what's up, Prep for it? And, I've got that ready. Okay, so now an event occurs. And let's say, 90% of the population is gone within a month. All right, so when do you start scavenging? Do you wait until you run out of supplies to start scavenging? And what's up, always survive? And I say no. And the reason I say no, don't wait until you run out of supplies, is because once I'm completely out of supplies, I'm desperate at that point. And I'm going to make mistakes when I start scavenging. I'm going to make mistakes that could cost me my life if I'm not careful, because scavenging can be extremely dangerous. If there are other people at that same location with that same idea you have, or I have, then there's a very strong possibility of conflict at that point with those people, because they're not going to want to just walk away and let me have that stuff. No, it's going to be conflict at that point, unless we come to some kind of agreement. So I would definitely not wait until your supplies are gone to start scavenging. Put this to use early. Hit the areas in the rural or, outskirts of the city first. Inside the city, where most people will still remain, or at least the remaining survivors, there'll be a higher population density even in SHTF in the city than there will be out in the woods, of course. And at that point, you're going to want to wait to hit those in the city until it's an absolute necessity. You're going to want to stay out in the rural area as long as you can. There's a lot of different avenues, a lot of different things that we can do here that'll really help us out. And I'm going to try and look at some of them here. Now, once I've determined it's time to start scavenging, then I need to put together a plan, and I need to put together a kit or tools, a certain set of tools that I'm going to take with me. The first thing is I'm going to need a plan. And instead of me going out with a bunch of tools in my backpack and trying to scavenge a location, if I'm with a group of people, which I personally will be with a group of people, as long as, we all survive the initial event, then we're going to send a scout first. You're going to send someone to do recon first. Now, when you send someone to do recon to one of these locations that you've marked on your map, then this person needs to have, if possible, a means of communication that he can, relay different information back and forth to the base camp and between him or her, whichever it may be. And this person needs to be armed. Now, the purpose of a scout is not to actually obtain any goods. It's to find a suitable location for an actual scavenger group from your group or a scavenger party to come and then scavenge that area. So the scout's job is to find the target. Then the scout will report back, and then the group will move in to do the actual scavenging. So a scout can be one person or it can be a pair. And it's probably better to do with a pair. And the reason I say that is if you think about military snipers, they don't normally go out alone, although they do sometimes. But most of the time, they're going to have a spotter, someone, with them. They may even have a flanker, someone watching their back. So it's good if you're going to send a scout out, that this scout will have someone with them so that if anything does go wrong, at least, and I hate to say it like this, but at least one of the two can make it back and let us know what's going on, So this person or this team that's scouting needs to have a few tools in general. And this is just basic tools because all they're doing is gathering intel, doing some recon here. So they're going to go to the location, whatever locations we had marked on our map that we deemed, to be good possibilities for scavenging for supplies. Now, the scout group, the two scouts or the single scout, solo scout, whichever, the need is, whichever you decide for your particular situation, they need to have a set of binoculars. They need to have a walkie-talkie, a means of self-defense, and, basic traveling supplies, because they're not going somewhere and they're not staying there for days. They're going somewhere and they're staying there for hours. And then they're coming back or they're relaying information back to us, and then we're going to meet them there. So this person needs to have binoculars. And a word of advice about binoculars, if you are using any type of looking device, if you're using binoculars, a scope on your rifle, if you take cheesecloth or like pantyhose and you put on the front end of your scope or on the front of your binoculars, this will prevent the sun from glaring off of it and, giving that sharp reflection that other people will see. Because if I'm facing the sun and I'm looking through binoculars, there is an extremely good chance that the people that I'm watching are actually going to see a reflection or a glint of sunlight off of the glass on my binoculars. So keep those covered with something thin you can see through, but something that blocks that reflection. And pantyhose actually work really well for that. So, just keep those little things in mind, because anytime that we draw attention, especially if you're a scout and you're only one or two people and you draw attention from someone else, then you're already at a disadvantage because that group probably has you outnumbered, especially if you're a solo, they're going to have you outnumbered. So the scout is more of a stealth type of thing. Now, as a scout, this person needs to determine certain pieces of information for us, needs to determine certain pieces. And the first thing is, when they begin to approach a particular facility, let's say we're looking at a warehouse, before they approach the warehouse, this is where patience comes in. And, like they say, patience is a virtue, but it can also be a lifesaver. If I do not have patience and I see this warehouse and I just look around a little bit and say, well, I don't see anybody, I'm going to go running in here, you know, I could get ambushed. It could be very easy to ambush me. So the scout is going to have to be very patient at that point. Once they reach the location that they're scouting, then they're going to have to post up somewhere, and they're going to have to remain there for a few hours just observing, because I know if I'm in a situation and I suspect that someone is observing my position, like a scout's observing where I'm at, I'm not going to get up and move around. I'm going to lay prone. I'm going to be very still, and I'm going to wait on that scout to make a mistake. And that's what the scout has to do, is when they get there, they have to sit, they have to wait, just like you said, Jay. Sit, wait, and watch. Exactly that. And not for 5 minutes, not for 10 minutes, not for 15 minutes. I'm talking 3 or 4 hours. Because if you wait 3 or 4 hours and there is still absolutely no movement, then it probably is safe to take a closer approach. All right, so at that point, once the scout determines that he does not see anyone there, that is safe to approach this facility, the scout should circle this facility. Do not go straight into the entrance. Circle the facility and see how many exits there are in that facility, because you always want to know where the exits are. And, you know, a lot of times you walk in somewhere and you'll see the exit, but you go into a warehouse or a manufacturing facility, you're not going to see it because this is a big place. So you got to have a general idea. Okay, you know, I entered the east side, but when I was doing a perimeter check, I saw that there was an exit on the south and the west side, in the corner maybe, or something, you know, just throwing that out there. So at least I got a general direction to go if I need to exit that facility very quickly. Now, the scout is just going to scout it. He's going to see, is this worth the entire party, the entire scavenging party, coming and spending a whole day or two, you know, scavenging this area? So the scout's going to have to look at this particular area and at this point deem, are there any supplies worth taking that time over? And this is why communication is so important. You know, with the EMP or something like that, maybe you won't have any communication. But in certain type of events, we would still have our walkie-talkies and we would still have things like that. So we would be able to communicate with one another. And communication is the key. And that's another reason why I would send 2 scouts instead of 1. Because once the scouts determine that this area is safe, then one of the scouts can return. And then the party returns with them. And then we begin the scavenging at that point. So you always want to make sure of the area. And if I am scouting an area and I see movement inside that warehouse or inside that facility, well, at that point, it's not scavenging anymore, because I see someone there. They've already, I guess you could say, laid claim to it. So at this point, you know, you have to ask yourself, what do you want to do? Do you want to move to the next facility, or do you want to take this one? Well, it depends on the situation, I guess. And it depends on who's in there. So that could go 40 cans of pie filling, but that could go a lot of different ways, and it all depends on the situation. Next, now that we have identified a facility as safe, and either the second scout has returned back and told the scavenging party that it's safe, or we've relayed communications between, you know, the 2 of us, and we know that it's safe to go there. Now the scavenging party can move out. The scavenging party is going to need tools. We don't want to just show up, you know, empty-handed, because there's a lot of different scenarios for different types of items that we might need. And we're going to need special tools to get these types of things. So a good example of a good, well-rounded toolkit to go scavenge is, you know, if you've got multiple people in your party and you have a means of transportation, then you can pretty much carry all the tools that you need. But if you're on feet, then you might be, you know, a little more limited at that point to what you can carry with it. So some of the things we're going to need is a crowbar to get into places. Also a bump key or a set of lock picks, because some things we won't be able to actually pry open. We'll actually have to get into that lock in certain areas. We're going to need things like that. You got a list right here. I want to make sure I don't leave anything off. All right. Screwdrivers, sockets, hammers, you know, your standard tools that you would need to disassemble something. Because unless you're just looking for food, then you're probably scavenging for things that can help you, you know, help you build a better power source or power supply, things that can help you, rebuild certain areas of whatever, you're lacking in your particular camp. So you're going to want to take as many tools as you can. But some of the most important ones, if you're on foot, are your crowbar, your lock picks or bump key, hammer, screwdriver, sockets, a small toolkit, something that can be used, a knife, of course, a set of gloves, because when you're scavenging in certain areas, especially when we talk about after the apocalypse, when you're scavenging in certain areas, there may be, a lot of things there that you just want to keep from getting on your body. Could be chemicals, or it could just be the simple fact I want to wear gloves so I don't cut my hands. We already talked about binoculars and the walkie-talkie and the need for those. A siphon hose or a pump of some type, of hand pump. If you look at, I know I've got a couple hand pumps for kerosene heaters. They got the little orange pump. And it's got the tube that runs down and the tube out the other side, and you can just pump it out of your gas jug into your kerosene heater. And pumps like that are extended, that you can get down, and you can get that liquid, whatever that liquid may be, whether it's gas, whether it's water, whether it's some other chemical that you may need, then you can pump that through there. So that's another good tool to take with you. Of course, everyone needs to be armed during this, and it's not so much that we're looking for armed conflict, but we're looking to be able to defend ourselves should we see armed conflict. Also, a respirator or a dust mask, because after an event like this, when you start going into these facilities and the power hasn't been on in a while and these exhaust fans haven't been running, then there's going to be a lot of debris in the atmosphere. Most likely it's going to build up a lot of dust. It's going to build up, possibly bacteria and chemicals. So having a respirator, a dust mask for when you're going deep into some of these manufacturing facilities or industrial facilities is a pretty good idea. So a basic set of tools, a basic set of self-defense tools, protective gear, means to carry what you take with you. And that's why you're also going to need some type of bag, some type of satchel, or preferably a vehicle if that's at all possible. If not, a wagon that you can pull. All right. So now, as a scavenging group, we've got our tools together. We've received word that this particular facility is ready to be scavenged. That there are some things that, we used to, there are some things in there that we could use, I should say. So the next thing to do is, to organize and to make a list of things we're looking for. And this goes back to, how are you scavenging? If we're just scavenging for food, then that's a pretty simple list. And we're probably not going to need half the tools that we just talked about. But I'm not personally going to scavenge just for food. I'm going to be scavenging for things like solar panels, for things like AC to DC converters, for things like transformers, smaller transformers that I can use, alternators on cars, because these can be used in charging circuits, homemade, battery circuits. I'm going to be looking for things like that, not just, to feed myself. I'm going to be looking to make life better. I mean, in an apocalyptic scenario, it's going to be bad enough, but if I could get the power on, if I could get some of those types of things going, then it's going to be that much easier. And everything we do, then we in turn build upon. So establishing power with like solar panels in turn leads to me repairing other electronic devices. And now we've got other devices that we can use. It really opens doors. With everything we build, then that gives us the opportunity to build something more right beside it. So that's why when I say scavenging, two different categories, for basically just for food or scavenging for the future, because it's going to be up to us. It's going to be up to us, people our age, to lead the younger generation into this and to show them that, hey, scavenging for food isn't the only way, that you can also scavenge and collect this gear and you can really build something from it. And this is, all limited to our own skill level, I guess, but it's something that would really, go a long ways. All right. So let's talk about some things that, some places that would be good to scavenge. Let me get to the right page here. All right. Now, first of all, I'm going to say this when it comes to scavenging is there's nowhere I would pass by if it were safe. And that's from, residential homes, assuming nobody's there, of course, all the way to gas stations, to industrial facilities. I'm not going to pass anything by unless I'm just trying to survive. Maybe I'm bugging out to a location and I just want to get to that location. Yeah, then I might not scavenge and try and stock up on all this stuff. I might move on to that location. But in general, scavenge everything. But some of the better places to scavenge that we want to talk about, some of the better places are, first one, and these are not in order of importance. They just didn't happen to be, the way I wrote them down. The first one is automotive shops of any type. Automotive shops of any type. And we're talking about your car garages, where you take your mechanic, where you take your car to get worked on. We're talking about parts stores, parts warehouses. And the thing is, when we start trying to rebuild anything, even if it was an EMP that say fried all the electronic cars that are out there, well, there's still these older cars. And these older cars may not be running right this moment, but if I have access to the parts that I can get them running with, then I have means of transportation and means of producing more transportation for those people around me. And that's going to be invaluable. That's going to be, that's going to be a deciding factor in a lot of aspects. So these are going to be great for not just that, but when we think about a lot of the things that you find in parts stores, if you think about a lot of things you find in there, especially in the parts warehouses and all, you have things like seat belts. You have the kits that people put in their cars, because if you go in AutoZone, well, I can go in AutoZone or Advanced Auto, either one, and buy a vehicle survival kit. So they've got those in their warehouses that have survival gear in it. Might not be a lot, but it's going to be a little bit that I can build upon at that point. So automotive shops are going to be a great place to, and when I say automotive shops, I mean anything that deals in automotive parts, basically. Next, pretty straightforward one here, and that's cars. Cars. We've talked a lot about how, the roads will be jammed with dead cars if there's, in a lot of different scenarios. You're going to have the interstates that are going to be backed up with wrecks and with cars that have died and things like that. Well, that's thousands of targets all lined up in a row right there that we can go through and scavenge. And there's so much in a car that, we can get out of it. And that's not to mention, think of all the tools. Think about this. If there are, 200 cars on this, little stretch of interstate right here, there's 200 cars on it. How many of those people pop their trunk, grab their toolbox and their spare tire and walk down the road with it? Not a single one of them did. So that's telling me that every one of those cars has got a little toolkit in it. And that's not to mention those people who might have even put some prepping gear in there. And that's not to mention the people that were going on vacations that left their luggage in there with all different types of supplies. And I hate to sound morbid like that, but, in a survival situation, when we're trying to rebuild, that just is the way it is. So scavenging through cars is going to be a gold mine in a lot of different areas, because people, when they abandon their cars, they're not going to abandon their cars with 300 pounds on their back. They're going to travel light for the most part, because most people are not prepared with a vehicle kit and a bug out bag in their car. I know a lot of us are, but in general, the general public is not. So all this other stuff, they're going to leave in their car, and there's no telling what types of vital supplies that we could find in these automobiles that are abandoned at that point. And not to mention, a lot of these automobiles may still be functional, and they were just stuck in a traffic jam. So if we're able to push some things out of the way, we're able to obtain some, transportation at that point. All right. The next one, and we've talked a little bit about this, but distribution centers or warehouses. Distribution centers or warehouses, this is where they store everything. I mean, everything that we see on the shelves at our local, retail store, Walmart or whatever that might be, it's come from a warehouse somewhere. And knowing where these warehouses are is going to give you a very, very good supply, of gear that's going to help you. Because think about it. If I know where Harbor Freight's warehouse is, Harbor Freight, then you have a complete warehouse full of tools, full of generators, full of welders, full of solar panels, because they do sell a lot of solar panels at Harbor Freight. I've got a couple of them here. And finding these warehouses that are like this. If I had this marked on my map, this is going to be one of my first targets once SHTF happens and things collapse, because I know in that warehouse for Harbor Freight or Lowe's or anything like that, Home Depot, that I'm going to be able to come out of there with a truckload of generators at the very least. So don't pass by the warehouses. Everybody's looking at grocery stores and convenience stores and, you know, where can I get alcohol? The liquor stores, the pharmacies, where can I get my drugs? You know, they're all looking at that. Well, I'm looking at generators. I'm looking at solar panels. I'm looking at tools that I can build some defenses around my area. And that's what you're going to find in a lot of these warehouses for places like Home Depot, Lowe's, you know, Harbor Freight and anything like that, Tractor Supply, all those warehouses and the stores themselves, Yep. Fire stations. Now, fire stations are not going to have a lot, but the reason I mention a fire station is because even in a small town, you got at least one. In a big town, you've got 20 or 30. Big city, you got 20 or 30. Now, assuming social services have collapsed and these have been abandoned, then, you know, there will most likely be a lot of valuable gear here, at least communications gear that we could probably, you know, take advantage of. Won't the authorities go at the warehouses? Jay Davis, you know, that's a good point. And that's a good point. If there is any government left during an SHTF scenario, then I expect the government to not really be any semblance of the government that, even though the government that we see right now, words can't even describe sometimes, but it's not going to be anything like that. I think the government's going to become more of a mafia type of thing. They're going to be in control because they do have what military weapons that are left. And yes, I believe you're probably right, Jay Davis. They're probably going to know where these facilities are at, and they're going to try to get to all these generators, all these things like that before we can get to them. And, you know, that's why I say don't wait. You know, I mean, I'm not saying I'm going to go out scavenging tonight, like we already said, but, you know, if an EMP hits or something worldwide hits and the grid is down worldwide and, you know, people have been wiped out or whatever, you better believe I'm not going to hesitate to go ahead and start getting the supplies that I need, to getting the supplies that me and my family needs. And gas stations, I do have gas stations on my list. I think gas stations would be good for one thing, and that is gas, because a lot of people that will break in there and will take the food, that will take the supplies, are not going to have the devices they need to be able to get the gas out of the tanks that are underground there. And that goes back to the gear that we're talking about earlier, having some sort of pump or some type. There's a lot of different kinds on the market. There's like crank pumps that you can use that'll build up pressure and they'll pull that gas up and, you know, put it in your jug. You have hand pumps, and even if you have means to electricity, electric pumps. So, you know, that's going to be a good place to find gas for a short period of time, because it's only a matter of time before somebody else like me comes through there and gets that gas. So it's also going to be one of those things you want to get as quick as you can. Look at it, you know, look at it as like, if you don't get it now, you're not going to get it. So once we're in that type of scenario, I don't need to hesitate and sit around and wait here at my house. So, well, you know, I got 50 gallons of gas out there. I'll wait till that's gone. I'll wait till my food's gone. Then I'll go looking. Yeah, I'm probably, you know, out of luck at that point. I'm not going to wait that long. Once I know society has collapsed, then that's going to be the point in which I begin, you know, looking for some of these supplies that we talk about. Another place that a lot of people may not think of is government buildings. And the reason I say government buildings is because most government buildings, especially the more modern, newer government buildings, these are going to have solar panels on the roof. And a couple of big solar panels give you a decent amount of power, you know, and if you have the means, the transportation to be able to transport 10, 20 solar panels that are on the top of this building, along with the inverters that are there, and, you know, you're going to have a lot of power at that point. You're going to be able to supply your household and possibly another and more. And not just to mention that, but a lot of government buildings, depending on what type they are, will have things like emergency supplies in their basement, even gear. You may even find gas masks. You may even find, you know, CBRN suits and things like that in their basements. But they're going to have emergency supplies down there. Most likely going to have solar panels And and there's a lot of other things depending on the type of the building. You could even find weapons in those particular buildings, which brings me to something else government related is don't forget. I mean, you think about how many times you're driving down the road and you see this, this sign on the side of the road that says you're doing 45, speed limit 35, and it shows your speed 45 or whatever it is. And it has a solar panel on it. Now, that's just not just a solar panel. That's a solar panel plus the inverter there. So that's a complete circuit. I can actually power my DC devices with a solar panel like that if it's the appropriate voltage, which most of them are pretty standard voltage. So those types of signs. And also you think about your stoplights, your red lights, your traffic lights. A lot of these are solar powered these days. And if you take the solar panel, though, don't just take the solar panel. The solar panel will be wired directly into a box that's mounted on a pole. Take the box too, because that box has the inverted power supply. And you can take it, and from there, I will be able to power my DC power supplies, or I could even convert that to an AC if I have the right transformers there, and power AC devices if I have enough of those panels. And if I take one from this red light, one from the next red light, one from the next one, because the power's down, or the grid's down, people aren't driving, then, before I know it, I've got 10, 20 solar panels that are capable of powering, a small home. So that's something to look at too, is solar power, especially after the grid is down, because solar panels, it doesn't matter if it's an EMP, a CME, it doesn't matter what it is. These things are still going to be fine and they're still going to work. So if I can get enough solar panels, I can provide power for my particular area at that point. All right. Now I also put grocery stores on this list. I put grocery stores on there. And although I put them on there for the obvious reasons, they have groceries, they have food. But in reality, if I'm not in there running in as soon as something bad happens along with the crowd, there's not going to be anything left there. But it is somewhere that I could go pick through, afterwards, a little while later. And I might find some types of valuable supplies in there, because grocery stores, they have more than groceries. A lot of them will have, some types of first aid kits and things like that. All right. The next one. Well, the next three, I'm going to tie them in together, but I'm going to talk about the first one. First, hospitals, pharmacies, and apothecaries. All right, first, hospital, for obvious reasons, a couple of reasons. A hospital is a pretty sturdy building, and if need be, you think about it, you could actually make that a base of operations, because you've got a hospital there, but it's a concrete, at least the ones in my area, concrete solid buildings. And on the bottom floors, there isn't a ton of windows. It's not like a retail store with all windows in front. These are pretty much blocked off. It could make for a secure location. But a hospital is bound to have some goods, some supplies that are going to help you. And the reason, even if it's already been scavenged, a hospital is a big place. And a lot of people are going to take what they can out of opportunity. They're going to take the easy stuff. They're not going to break into, locked rooms that they can't get into. Something that they can't access very easy. These kind of things may still be there. And in a hospital type of environment, you're looking at a very large area, that you're going to be scavenging through. And in this type of environment, you're going to get more than just medicine. I mean, people are looking at a hospital and thinking, I'm getting medicine. Well, it's got 1,000 beds there. I'm also getting, a lot of bed sheets, a lot of cloth, a lot of linen that's going to help me out. I'm getting a lot of toiletries, a lot of cleaning supplies. I'm getting a lot of other gear. Even if all the medicine is gone, think about everything else that a hospital has in it that it takes to run on a day-to-day basis. This is going to be a lot of stuff, left over for us to, help rebuild and help make life a little easier. Because if you have a group that's got 20 or 30 people, what are the chances that all these people have, extra changes of clothes, extra changes of bed sheets, shower curtains, just the little things that we don't think about. Because I don't think about surviving to just live in the woods. I think about surviving so that I can help rebuild a little something of humanity, a little something, put something back, give something back, I should say. Pharmacies and apothecaries. Pharmacies are probably going to be one of the first targets, just like gas stations and grocery stores. I expect these to be picked pretty thin in the initial stages. So if this isn't somewhere you can get to on a relatively quick basis, then it's probably going to be fairly empty by the time you do get there. You may be left over with, some random stuff, but all the prescription medication is going to be gone, because I'm pretty sure the first person that comes in there looking for drugs isn't just going to grab one or two of the bottles they like. They're probably going to rake every bottle off into a garbage bag and take it all with them. And that's what I would do. Not for the drugs, but I would do that so that I have all these prescription medications that I can help people with. And, a lot of people are going to do that. That's a good point. Prep for it. Check your herbal shops, your smoke shops, your natural remedy shops, your things like that. And we might be surprised what you find. I think strip malls contain a lot of different places like that. And that's also a good target. And when I use the word target, I don't mean it in a negative way. I just mean a point of focus, a good target for that. Apothecaries make medication. They also make custom medication. So in the apothecaries, you're going to find a lot of the ingredients that are actually used in a lot of the prescription medication. And this is going to be a good place for someone who knows what they're doing. For me, going into an apothecary, I have no idea what to mix together to make, a painkiller, or to make a blood thinner, or to make something like that. So it's not going to do me a whole lot of good. But would I take it? Yes, I would take every bit of it. And I'll tell you why. It's because I can give that to somebody who does know what they're doing. And then that person is looking at me saying, thanks, you helped me out so that I can make this to help other people out. And now I've just made a bunch of people happy. And, that's why scavenging is not just good for feeding yourself, for giving yourself clothes and things like that. It's not just good to help rebuild, but it's good for building trust with people around you. It's good for barter items. When I'm scavenging, I'm not also looking for things I need. I'm looking for things that last person I bartered with might have asked me about. And now that I see that, hey, I've got something I can trade right here. And, so it's a really good, scavenging is going to be something that's necessary in this type of world that we're talking about, in this type of world. So take advantage of it. Don't just take what you need, take what you can trade. Take everything you can that will help you and your group build, or even take things that you're like, well, we can't use this. We don't have power, but the goal is to have power at some point. So I will be able to use that. Take everything you can. Another place, and I think we've already mentioned this too, is houses. Think about this. A lot of people are like, well, houses, people are going to take all their good stuff when they leave. Yeah. You know what people take when they leave their houses? They grab their jewelry boxes. They grab their money out the safe. They grab their guns. They grab what food they can carry, and they're gone. Well, I'll just put it like this. In my case, if I have to leave my home, if I have to bug out from where I'm at right now, well, whoever scavenges my house is going to be a pretty happy person, because I'm not going to be able to carry all my survival supplies with me. I'm not going to be able to carry all this food with me. I'm going to have to leave a lot behind if I have to bug out in a hurry. And that may be the case. And if that is the case, to where people left their homes in a hurry, then when you do scavenge through these residential neighborhoods, you're probably going to find a lot of different things that you weren't expecting to find. And it could range from firearms to gold to silver to food to medical supplies to just clothing to vehicles in the garages, tools in the garages, or shelter. Because this house is abandoned, it's now shelter for those who need it. So that's also a pretty good area to scavenge. Manufacturing facilities. We touched on this a little bit, but one of the points I wanted to bring out about manufacturing, some of the larger facilities are self-sufficient. And when I say self-sufficient, what I mean is they don't just have an assembly line running through the middle of it, making parts or making products. They have support services. You have canteens, you have restaurants in some of these places, which are all going to store food. You always have a first aid or health office that is going to store some of the basic medical supplies. All throughout these facilities on the walls are first aid kits. I mean, hundreds in some large facilities. I worked at the BMW plant in South Carolina, and that's a huge facility. And in that facility, there were probably 1,000 different first aid boxes. I might be exaggerating, probably not quite 1,000, but hundreds of first aid boxes on the walls. Nobody ever used them, but in this type of situation, that's 100 or hundreds of first aid kits that I now take back to, my group. So manufacturing facilities, don't pass them by, because not only do manufacturing facilities have possibly food, they definitely have water stored up. They may have, and like we said, the first aid kits, they may still be there, a lot of different first aid kits. But think about the tools that it takes to operate a manufacturing facility. Most of these facilities have their own little workshops for every aspect of any type of part they might need. So you're going to find a lot of different machining tools. You're going to find a lot of different tools in general. And a lot of manufacturing facilities do have solar panel on top, not because that solar is going to power their facility, but because they get a pretty big break from the state on their taxes for just having those solar panels there. So these are going to be good places to scavenge, but keep in mind, a manufacturing facility can be a very dangerous place. When you start talking about hydraulics and mechanical devices, just because the power went out doesn't mean the pressure, the hydraulic pressure on this press that I'm fixing to open up isn't still there. You got to be very careful, because there'll be no warning systems in place with no power. And this could be a very dangerous situation. Mm-hmm. And, as preppers, of course, we need to have enough supplies to be able to take care of our family and to be able to take care of it for an extended period of time. If I have enough supplies to take care of my family for 30 days, I failed, because 30 days passes with the blink of an eye. If we think about that, I need to have enough supplies to take care of my family, to be realistic, for multiple months to multiple years. And, this does take a lot. And even if I do have those supplies, even if I have everything I need for me, my wife, my 4 kids, my 5 kids, and, even if I have enough supply for all that, what happens when we take someone in? What happens when we join with other groups because we want to be stronger, strength in numbers? At some point, these supplies will run out. Now, I can hoard my supplies and I could say, I'm not sharing with you. But now this group is not going to help defend me if I need that. So at some point in time, if this type of, I'm not talking about an economic collapse or hurricane. I'm not talking, because of economic collapse, we're going to pull out of it. There's a lot of talk about an economic collapse right now, and it's probably going to happen. I'm not denying that. But in the end, we're probably going to pull out of it from that standpoint. I'm talking about things that change the world forever, to where it's never going back to the way it is today. It's never going back. A lot of humanity is gone. And at this point, even though I may have all the supplies I need, then I still want more. And that's not a greed thing. It's a thing that I'm thinking ahead of time, because I'm 50 years old. I may live 20 years. I may live 30. I may even live 40, but, probably not. But my kids, my youngest one is be 17, next month. He's going to live a long time. He's going to live a lot longer than me. And I know that if I've got 10, 15, 20 years of survival food stocked up, that's not going to last him to the end of his lifetime. And when I prep, that's who I prep for, is my kids. I don't prep for me. I'm a grown man. If I'm on my own, yeah, I can go out in the woods and survive. But I prep for my kids. I prep for their kids, so that they will have something, to fall back on if things go bad. And they're going to live a lot longer than me. So no matter how many supplies I got, at some point in time, they're going to have to rely on either, society, if society has redeveloped, or on their own skills and the own supplies that they can acquire at that point in time. All right. Next one, number 13, marinas. Marinas, where the boats are. Now, this depends on where you live. In some areas, this will not apply at all. In some areas, it's a huge thing. If you live on the coastline, there's marinas everywhere. There's docks everywhere. And up here in Michigan, we got the Great Lakes. You know, there's a lot of marinas up around here. There's a lot of lakes in general in Michigan. I've noticed that since I've been up here. There's more lakes here than I've ever seen. Now, in South Carolina, we had a lot of lakes. So there's a lot of marinas there. And on the marinas, you have a lot of valuable gear. You know, you got boats that have fishing poles. You can take these boats out as long as it's not the type of event that's killed off everything in the world. You know, then these are boats that I can use to go out to fish and even use for transport from one side of the lake to the other. You know, should I find supplies I need to transport at that point? Office buildings. Now, office buildings are also a decent place to scavenge. But if we think about our office buildings, you know, a lot of times we're going to end up with things there. You're probably going to end up with a few first aid kits. You're probably going to end up with stuff like that. You're also probably going to end up with, you know, maybe some vending machine items and things like that. But this definitely worth checking out. Another one, and this may also be one of the ones that get hit pretty quick, and this is pawn shops and gun stores. Pawn shops and gun stores. Obviously, the gun stores, I expect if something like this does happen, gun stores are going to be, you know, one of the first ones that people are kicking down the door to see what they can get. But also pawn shops. Pawn shops have a lot of good things in them. You know, I go on pawn shops a lot just looking around. They have everything from precious metals, you know, to guns, crossbows, you know, compound bows. They have a lot of different stuff there. Another place for those that have pets is, of course, pet stores. And, you know, if we have pets, then, you know, we're going to feed those pets. And if I have to give my dog a little bit of food off my plate to make sure that my dog lives, then, you know, of course I'm going to do that. But if I can hit this pet store over here and they do have some dog food left, and that's going to help me preserve the food that I have for humans and give this dog just the dog food. But then again, you know, I'm probably going to make my dog hunt a little bit more if this were true. Yes, Jay Davis. What would you say the safest way to travel is if you scavenge public buildings? Eventually you have to expose yourself. Yes, you're going to have to expose yourself. And that's the importance of the scout. That's the importance of the scout. The scout or scout team. It doesn't have to be a single scout, you know. As a matter of fact, I recommend 2, but you may even have a scout team. And that's their purpose, is to decide if that particular area is inhabited or not, if it's safe for us to get into that area. And if the scout does their job properly, then it should be all right for me just to pull in there, whether it be with a horse and wagon, a bunch of people with backpacks, or a vehicle. The safest way to travel, you know, you're going to have to expose yourself. There's no getting around that to get into these type of areas. But at the same time, you know, we can limit that exposure by planning our routes carefully. And the scout has to do their job. And that's why when you send someone to scout this position out, to scout this area out, it has to be someone that you would trust with your life. And why I say that, it has to be someone that pays attention to detail. This person can't just go to an area and look around and say, well, it looks good, it looks clear. No, they have to be willing to stay there a while, and they have to be able to recognize, you know, different signs, I guess you would say. They have to be able to look at a building, because, for example, if there's a building right here, just because I don't see any movement doesn't mean someone's not in there. Because if I go into a building to occupy that building, then I'm probably not going to be standing in front of the windows, you know, moving around, drawing attention. No, I'm going to be laid low in there. No one's probably going to know I'm in there. And that's what the scout has to determine. So they're going to have to look for signs of entry. They're going to have to use their, you know, tools that they have, the binoculars, and they're going to have to look and see, is there possibly, you know, tracks that lead in there? Is there signs of forced entry? Are there broken windows? Because if you see any of those things, then you know someone has at one point entered that building. Yes, urban scouting is something that people take for granted. And, you know, that's something that, to touches on another subject, the gray man. And the gray man, you know, we have to realize what the gray man was originally designed to do. You know, a lot of people hear the gray man and they hear gray man tactics and they watch videos. I've watched a lot of them. I even made one, and it talks about how the gray man, you know, is going to save your life. You got to be the gray man to get out of town. And I got, you know, I'm just going to tell you from a military standpoint, there ain't no damn gray man. And the reason is because if I'm on watch, I don't care what you look like. You come through my area and my glass is on you. And by glass, I mean my scope. You know, this is in an SHTF scenario, especially one that the population has dwindled. Do you think the criminal element is going to look at me and say, well, he doesn't look too threatening or nothing, let's just let him go? You know, no, they're not. They're not. And that's a whole different subject, though. And I really need to get into that because I was watched a few videos here recently that this is really being pushed. And a lot of people are looking at this saying, you know, I'm going to be the gray man and I'm going to survive. I'm going to gray out. For somebody that's observant, you're not gray. It's plain and simple. It's really easy for me right now. I can walk out here and I can be the gray man. I'm 6'1", 215 pounds. And I can walk out here and be the gray man for one reason. And it's because everybody around me has got their phone right in front of their face. And they're looking away from you. They got a mask on their face. Yeah, you can pull it off. You can pull it off right now. But when the rule of law goes out the window, when the rule of law is out the window, the population has been reduced. Everybody that you don't personally know is a threat. It doesn't matter how big you are, how small you are, what you look like, whether you've got camouflaged on, whether you're carrying an AR-15 or old sawed-off 12-gauge pump. It doesn't matter. You're all a threat. Everyone's a threat. There is no gray man in an SHTF scenario. You can do it today. This was originally, let me get back to what I was saying. The gray man concept was originally developed in the 1940s and 50s by spies. And the whole thing was for a spy to go into a foreign country and to blend in. That's the whole concept of the gray man, summed up in 2 sentences right there. That's what the gray man is. That's where it was developed. That's how it was developed. So if I thought I was going to pull off the gray man and that's going to get me out of a city, then, you know, maybe it will, but probably not. Probably not. And like I said, that's a whole different subject. I really want to do a video on that, but it seems like anytime I start knocking the gray man, people get mad at me, but I'm just trying to tell you the truth. You know, I've been in combat zones and I'll tell you straight up, there ain't no gray man. Matter of fact, I look for the gray man because it's that person that's trying to be not noticed. That's probably the threat than it is just this dude walking down the street with, you know, whatever. I mean, it's the person that's trying to be inconspicuous. It's the person that's trying not to be noticed. That's the one you watch out for. You know what they say. It's always the quiet ones, right? I mean, just be careful with that whole principle of that gray man. But getting back on topic here. Restaurants. All right. Restaurants definitely be good. Not because they got any food left. They don't have any food left. But think about what else is in a restaurant. You know, you're trying to rebuild your camp here. And in this restaurant, think of all the cooking supplies that you have in there. There may even be other things. There may even be some food left over, you know. So restaurants, maybe if you get there quick enough, you might get some of the food. But if you don't get there quick enough, then you're probably going to get some cleaning supplies. And you're probably going to get some, you know, towels, hand towels, rags, things like that you can use to clean with. And if you're into it, maybe even tables and chairs. Or if you're good enough, a stove or two. But, you know, that would require transportation. Number 18, we touched on retail stores. And these are your big box stores. These are like Best Buy, you know, these like places like that. I see Best Buy, you know, being hit, places like that being hit in the early stages. But after that, they'll probably get left alone because everybody's going to be like, they have nothing there. But anything electronic you want, I mean, you think about all the different devices they have there, that the things that you could put together with this parts and supplies they do have in stock. Once you develop a power supply with solar panels and things like that, then stores like this are going to be extremely valuable to you. Schools, I think we already mentioned schools earlier, but schools will be, there'll be also schools will be a good place to, at least in the area I'm at, to create a base of operations if you needed to. For one reason, they're big. For another reason, they're not made to look pretty. So they're just basically brick or concrete structures that are pretty solid, because schools have to meet certain standards. As far as the building codes, they have to meet stricter building codes than if I build a house over here. So these are going to be a little more sturdy. There's not going to be a ton of supplies in the school. You may find, some cleaning supplies. You may be able to pull some things out of the cafeteria. You may even find a first aid kit or two. But if you're talking about space with multiple rooms, think of it. If you took all the desks out of a school, you basically got an apartment complex, minus, the bathrooms in every apartment. But I mean, it's a place that you and multiple people could, at least for a little while, set up a base of operations. And probably one of the ones that I think, and I'm just going to be honest, is going to be one of the most rewarding as far as gear goes, storage buildings. And when I say storage buildings, I'm talking about these self-storage buildings where there's like 200-300 units, and you think about that. 200 or 300 units, that are, say, 10 by 12 at the smallest up to, 20 by 12 at the biggest, or however big they get, wherever you're at. That's a lot of stuff, because I think back to the times, in my life that I've had storage buildings, and I think about the things I put in there. My goodness, there's a lot. You're going to be able to find a lot in storage buildings, but this is probably going to be the most labor intensive ones of them all. But there's no telling what you could get. But I guess it boils down to, in an apocalyptic scenario, if I'm going to stand back and say, well, I'm not going to scavenge because that's not mine, then I'll be on the casualty list most likely, or at least some of the people I care about will, because I'm not going to be able to hunt and fish, not with other people out there, to provide for a large group. And, I say, for me, if it comes down to this and I'm scavenging, I'm going to pick targets that I consider targets of opportunity, targets of interest, things that I really definitely want to hit, places that I know have solar panels, places that I know have batteries for these solar panels, places I know have medical supplies. But I'm also not going to pass up this convenience store on the side of the road as I'm driving by here. I'm going to check it out. When it comes to scavenging, like we said before, there's two types: the type to survive and the type to rebuild. I don't want to just survive. If all I'm going to do is eat, sleep, and die until, I die of old age, then take me in the event. I want to help rebuild. I want to be able to help my children, to help their children, to help your children, to help them have a better future, if something like this were to happen. All right. Well, that was a bunch of good. Does anybody have any suggestions about maybe any places that I left off the list here? It's always good. Remember what we're saying? Make that map now, of your county, the places that the places that would have excellent supplies. Mark them on your map. And when it comes time, go to them first, and then work your way inward towards the inner part of the city if you can. But don't put yourself at risk. Don't put yourself at risk, because I'm not going to put me and my kids at risk for this one facility over here. When there's another one over here that's available. So, remember, if someone is already occupying that facility, it's no longer scavenging. It's either robbery or, theft at that point. And, there's a thin line between it. And, until we are in this actual event, then, it's going to be hard to distinguish exactly where that line is. All right. Well, that was some things. I just wanted to look at some things there. Now, make sure to check out the video I got coming out. Probably, I'm hoping I'll get it out tomorrow. I still got a lot of editing to do. It took me a lot longer to put the document together. But this document, if you do prep a lot, if you do store a lot of gear, especially a lot of food and all, this document will help you out a lot, because it enables you to keep an inventory. And as you just enter one more thing in there, it's going to update your overall calorie count. It's going to update your overall serving count. And also it's going to update your overall cost on what you've got spent and everything there. And it's a really good document. So check out that video and it'll be available for download. Are there any questions before we get into our giveaway? Because, you know, we're doing another giveaway tonight. It's the same things that we gave away last time. It's 2 of the frog togs. It's 2 of the face mask and 2 packs of Chem lights. And I'll bring them right here to show you. All right. Now the frog togs, we know what those are. Those, I got them back there. I got them back there in the closet. I'm not going to go get them out, but we got 2 of those. 2 of those are coming out. Then you get 2 of the face masks. These are really good in cool weather. I'll tell you, they actually do keep you warm. And, you know, if you really wanted to, if you're in an area like where I'm at and you got to wear a mask everywhere you go, here you go. You know, here's a good one. Although people will look at you funny. I know they always look at me funny when I wear a gas mask out in public. But then your glow sticks. 2 sets of Chem lights, 2 packs of these glow sticks here. I always called them Chem lights from the military. 2 packs of those. All right, so y'all know how to get. Let's do 2 giveaways. Let's do 2 giveaways again. 2 of these, 2 complete sets. And the way that we do it, if you haven't seen it before, sorry, my voice is a little hoarse tonight. I don't know why. All right, if you are new here or the first time you've seen a giveaway, the way we do it is I am going to pick a number between 1 and 100. And I'm going to write the number down on this piece of paper. And the first person to guess that number will get this prize. And I got some other stuff that we're going to do later. Not tonight, but another night. We'll get this prize. And I'll make sure to email me. I'll put my email address up. Email me with your information. And we'll send it out to you. So right here, I'm going to write down the number. And then I'm going to type in go in the comments. Once you see go, then start guessing your numbers. Go. All right. 572. All right. It's between 1 and 100. I know you're probably kidding around. I was just 14, 25, 21. Mm-hmm. 34. Michigan here. Hey, Carol. I'm in Michigan too. I live up around the Walled Lake area. There we go. David Kissio. David, you got it. 21. The number 21. So David, let me scroll back up. Yep. David, is it Kissio? Kissio? I'm not sure how to pronounce that, so I'll just call you David. David, I'll put your name right down here. All right. So you are the winner, David. I spelled it. Sorry. I'm typing on this over here. And I don't have a light on it. I can't see it. So David, you got it. All right. Now email me at SeriousSurvivor at SeriousSurvivor.com, David. And we'll exchange information and I'll get this out to you one day this week. All right. And we're ready for giveaway number 2 here. And I'm not going to type it in. I'm just going to say go. Between 1 and 100 again. 1 and 100. Oh, there we go. Aaron James. Aaron James, 99. 99. Aaron James. Scroll up. Make sure. I just want to, there we go. All right, I'm getting lost here. All right, Aaron James, you had guessed 99. You are the winner. Aaron James was the winner. So email me at survivor@serioussurvivor.com. And I will get this out to you one day this week. So congratulations to the winners. Congratulations. All right. Well, like I say, make sure to check out the video that's going to be coming out. I'm hoping to get it out tomorrow night, but I'm not going to lie. I got a lot of editing. Got a lot of editing left to do on it. I may be able to have it done by tomorrow, but maybe Monday. But it'll be good, pretty good, because it has that document, that's going to be in the link there or in the description. This is a really good document. Check me out and check it out. And also checking out this document, I really want to hear people's feedback on it. What can I do to improve it? Because I want to make changes. I want to make it the best that it can be to help everybody that we can help with it. And, so I would really like some feedback on that. It would be really good. And I'll be doing some commercials. And I also want to say again, for those that weren't here in the very beginning, is that the survival show in Chernobyl that's going to be coming up in the next few months is still a go right now. It's a go. So we're looking for contestants. I'll be hosting the show. We're looking for contestants. The prize money is there. It's up in the air, $10,000 to $15,000. You don't have to beat your fellow contestants. You just have to make it to the goal to win that money. So it'll be something exciting. If you are interested in that, then send me an email at survivor@serioussurvivor.com, and I'll get your information, forward it to the lady's name is Kate, who's running this project. Forward it to her because she asked me yesterday to send me some more information, and I told her I would. And, that might be something people are interested in, and certainly be a pretty good experience, be on TV too. All right. Well, I want to say thanks a lot for everybody tuning in tonight. I hope that some of the things we talked about, I just wanted to talk on that because, we talk a lot about different apocalyptic scenarios, but we don't talk about what happens after. We also talk about this is what I need to survive. But, there are things we need to do after that event. And scavenging is going to be one of those things. As bad as it may sound to some people, it's going to be a way of life for a lot of people. And that just is what it is if it comes down to this type of event. So I hope everybody's having a good weekend. I hope you have a good weekend. And I want to say thanks a lot for listening to me tonight. I hope something I said helped somebody out there somewhere. And God bless everybody. God bless you all. And for now, Serious Survivor out.